Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us today for what's going to be a really exciting day. My name is Claire Parry, and I'm delighted to be your MC for today's Rail Skills Forum. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands and waters on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal people in the room today. Rail is a powerful connector, linking people and places. But long before rail lines were laid, these lands and waters were carefully navigated, cared for and understood by First Nations peoples, who continue to do so today. As we come together in Sydney to talk about the future of rail, it's important to recognise that our networks, past, present and future, cross the lands of many First Nations communities, each with deep histories, cultures and unbroken connections to country. To our international guests, we warmly welcome you to Sydney and invite all of us to show respect for the traditional custodians of the many lands our railways traverse, as we look ahead to a more connected, more inclusive and future-focused rail sector. So first of all, about me, it's great to see some familiar faces and friends in the room today, and I look forward to catching up with all of you, old and new friends, during the course of today. A little bit about myself, for those that don't know me. Originally, I was an educator and leader in the vet sector in the UK. I work across Australia and the UK as a strategic advisor on workforce development, skills policy and social procurement, with a particular focus on infrastructure and rail. I've been fortunate to support governments, agencies and industry partners to shape strategies that connect skills development with real opportunities for people, businesses and communities. And it's going to be a pleasure to be here today to guide the conversations and spotlight the ideas, innovations and partnerships that will shape the future rail workforce we all need. And so today, it's been a big week so far, especially if you were also at the ARA People and Culture Conference. Big shout out to the team at ARA for a great event and for partnering with the NTC on today's forum. This is the second Future Rail Skills Forum where the NTC brings together senior leaders from across governments and industry. At the first forum, we explored and sought feedback on critical challenges impacting the rail workforce, barriers to meeting skills demand and how we can close our skills gap. It provides important input as the NTC continues its rail skills reform priorities to the National Rail Action Plan. This year, we'll be focusing our discussion on what strategies we can implement to help meet future workforce demand. We are lucky to have international industry experts and leaders joining us from Europe and the UK. They'll be sharing valuable insights into how to transition and develop new skills to support railway modernisation and digitalisation. We know this is an important priority for Australia as the NTC led some work last year which found that over 40% of current rail rules will be greatly impacted by digitisation. The discussion today will be broken down into a few sessions which you can see on your programme on the table. First of all, we'll hear from Fiona Love, General Manager of Workforce Development at the ARA, and Michael Hopkins, CEO of the NTC, as they set the scene for today. We'll then hear from our international experts on their workforce transition, how they lead developing skills for the future, and we'll also hear from our local industry leaders on what's happening in Australia. We'll then finish with a panel discussion, wrapping up everything we've heard and discussing the learnings with all of you. That will be very ably led by Carolyn Walsh, Chair of the NTC. As you can see on the programme, we have spaces allotted for Q&As with the speakers, so save your questions for then and we'll bring them back up for a further chat. And once formal proceedings close, if you're not in a rush, please stick around for some networking. There'll be some nibbles and drinks going around. Lastly, just some general housekeeping. If it's an emergency, the alarm will sound, exit the room at the back and follow the directions of the hotel staff. So go down the stairs and exit the front of the building into Hyde Park. And I hope it stopped raining if that happens. Bathrooms are to the left as you go out of the room. Lunch will be served in the restaurant over to the right. If you've got any dietary requests, these have already been catered for. But if you have any concerns, just please ask. That's enough from me now. I'd like to welcome our friend Fiona from the ARA to kick things off.
He's rostra like an old friend now. So, welcome everyone and thank you so much for attending. We've been thinking that maybe we should declare a People in Rail Week going forward. It's certainly been that. And it's great to have the opportunity to hear about progress in a lot of the initiatives that are in parallel with our initiatives that are happening in the UK, in Europe and in Victoria and Queensland today. So we have a very rich input of information and opportunities to talk to people. I feel like we at the ARA, we started by putting our finger in a kind of, this huge dam wall to quickly fill some gaps and some things that were not available for industry. And a lot of you would be aware of what we've been doing over the last 3 years, one of those things being a professional certificate in rail, which has made up of 5 courses, which really provide people joining our industry or people wanting to move and shift within our industry some very sound and well-researched, industry-driven foundational knowledge and skills around the sectors of the rail industry. And then very early on, thanks to a bit of a wheat crisis that happened because of the war in Ukraine, we started working with some of our freight friends, and they needed access very quickly to drivers, and because of the problems with interoperability, drivers coming from Queensland with their locomotives to Western Australia had to stop and do things like 2 or 4 weeks safe working training at the Victorian border, and then another more. So it took them months to get from one state to another. There were some special dispensations made because of the urgency, but it really pointed and it highlighted to the problem, one, which was that people outside the rail industry couldn't enter into training in the rail industry unless they were employed in the rail industry, which is kind of, means you're just continuing to not actually offer opportunities for diversity or to build inclusive cultures because you're very inward looking. So we started building a skill set called the Rail Operations Fundamental Skill Set, and I'm very pleased to say we will be launching that later this year. It's made up of 7 units of competence, goes across about 30 careers in rail and about 30 different AQF qualifications. So it gives people a really great foundation to present to a rail organisation with a demonstrated commitment and interest in the industry. And then we've also, particularly through our work with Sandra and the NTC and my work over the last 28 years or so, we've got this one unit of competency, I'm sure you all know it, safely access the rail corridor. It's a favourite of mine, not. Surely to God we can just recognise one unit. But of course we can't, because we're very special. Each and every operator and RIM is very special. You can have so many drinks here, you can sleep so long there, you need to know about this boom gate there, whatever it might be. We've filled SARC with so much local stuff that you have to do it again every time you move anywhere. So a lot of our contractors have 3, 5 versions of SARC that they have to and keep current, because some of us recertify every year, some do it every 2 years, some do it 3, some go as far as 5. In New South Wales we don't bother at all. So, it's a grab bag of fun. But we did do some costing on that one unit. A group of economists in Western Australia did it actually, but nationally, just that one unit, if you sort of imagine that you've got a national SARC that takes 2 hours versus sitting in a classroom for 8 hours, it was something like just shy of 45 million a year in costs that you save, and that's just one aspect of the cost. So we did, and as I say, it's a 15-chapter book. We're just getting into chapter 2, and our friends from Western Australia, from BHP and Rio and ARC and PTA, are on that journey with us, and I love Western Australia. The other thing we did is university courses. 3 years ago we didn't have one engineering degree in this country that had any rail elective or unit or opportunity for learning. So we now have university electives and units and micro-credentials at Deakin University, Monash University, University of Tasmania and Edith Cowan University. And we're launching 3 units at Edith Cowan University on the 18th of August, which will be very exciting. And the most exciting thing about that is the undergraduate civil engineering degree has made the rail civil unit mandatory. So that means you won't be able to come out of that as an engineer in civil engineering without a rail unit. It's very exciting. I've charged, is Ravi here today? Is Ravi coming today? Anyway, but he was the first to actually get his elective actually running in Monash, so I've got the competition going with him now. He can do better. The other The other important work we've done, I think, is under Rowan's leadership, is putting the matrices. We've been working on matrices for years and getting nowhere because we just kept digging to China. They have to do this before they can be that. So Rowan brought this notion of the minimum viable product. What is the minimum somebody has to have in order to be a passenger train driver, in order to be a SIGALEC, in order to be whatever the role is, and brought people from industry across Australia together to really test and push that through. We do now, and concurrently we were also working with the Australian Bureau of Statistics to increase the number of actual occupations we have. We only had 8, we've now got about 17. We're a real industry. It's very exciting. So we can start to harmonise our role titles, which will make a huge difference. So we've done a lot of work and we're continuing, as I say, we're just getting into chapter 2. It's very exciting. There's 15 chapters. And I know today is going to really help us, again, take those next steps forward. There are some fantastic learnings. We've been very lucky to have Matthias particularly, and we also had Neil as well yesterday. We had Matthias both days, who contributed right through the conference, which was fantastic. So enjoy today, and ARA is very, very happy to be with the NTC offering this.
Thank you, Fiona. I knew you had to mention SARC. Wouldn't be saying that. Okay, to officially open today's forum, it's my pleasure to introduce someone who's been a driving force behind national efforts to modernise and reform Australia's transport systems, including how we build, recognise and grow our transport workforce. Michael Hopkins is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Transport Commission, an organisation that leads national regulatory and policy reform across road, rail and intermodal transport. Michael leads the NTC's work on national transport reform, bringing a strong focus to improving interoperability, workforce mobility and productivity across Australia's road and rail systems. As part of the National Rail Action Plan, the NTC is working closely with government and industry to build a more coordinated, future-ready rail workforce, supporting national consistency in skills and training and responding to the growing impact of digital technologies. Please welcome Michael.
Thanks for that, and good morning everybody, and I'd like to welcome everybody, and I know for quite a few of you this is actually day 3 following from the ARA People and Culture Conference, so if you're feeling a little bit tired, I'd like you to think of this as the ARA People and Culture After Party. And it's not often that we get senior education and transport officials and industry in the same room, and I want to acknowledge how important that is and how important it's going to be that we work in partnership into the future. And taking collective efforts to ensure our country has the workforce it needs to build and run a safe, modern and productive rail system. You will have heard the Prime Minister talking a lot about productivity in the last few months since the election, and that's going to come to a bit of a head next month with a Prime Minister's roundtable. In the lead up to that, each of the individual portfolio ministers have been running their own industry roundtables to get a sense of what opportunities are there. And Minister King held one in Sydney a couple of weeks ago with industry and unions. And it's not breaking any confidences to say that one of the really strong messages that came out of that, one of the strong messages that came out of industry and the workforce was the need for skills, both across road, rail, but also across maritime as well. That productivity agenda and the role of skills in productivity is going to become more important. So with that spotlight on us, we've got a real opportunity to make significant change, knowing that there'll be strong political backing for it. So for rail, this means a nationally coordinated and mutually recognised skills for training, for a training system that overcomes the current challenges, where training undertaken on one network is not recognised on another. We're also going to need new talent with capabilities in big data, AI, cloud and other technologies that we haven't even seen yet. So today I'll be talking about the skills and the workforce reform that we're leading through the National Rail Action Plan. But I want to start a little bit with just a little bit about us at the NTC, because I know, particularly for our international guests, we're a strange creature and we don't have many analogies in other countries. And I say that knowing also that I'm probably going to have to explain what we do to some of the Australians in the audience as well. And that's okay because we're modest but important. So we were established about 20 years ago in 2003 on the back of our predecessor organisation, the National Roads Transport Commission. And the idea is that in a federal system where the states and territories have responsibility for regulating land transport, that there is a benefit in aligning things, that you couldn't we couldn't have 8 sets of different rules across the country for things with wheels that cross borders. And so to give you an example of one of the very early and very powerful